Hello, welcome to episode 273 of the Notcast. It's a Sunday night, and today it's the 10th anniversary of the release of, to date, the only album by Trent Reznor's band How to Destroy Angels. But I'm not talking about that, because if I was more cynical and more timely, I would have done more episodes about Nine Inch Nails sooner and faster and harder and stronger. But I didn't. I only realised that today, that it was the 10th anniversary, so I haven't done anything with it. Instead, today, I am talking about two studio albums by the Nine Inch Nails. The last two released during the band's first lifespan. And these albums came out very, very quickly, one after the other, being Ghosts and The Slip, which also preceded a sort of semi-official live release, another version of The Truth, which is here, and the last Nine Inch Nails bootleg DVD I've been able to find, Closer. Although, obviously, I should have practiced my Anthony Hopkins voice from Silence of the Hams there. Closer. Yes. So, there we are. This is, let me count, it's Pretty Hate Machine, Broken I classify as an album, Downward Spiral, The Fragile, With Teeth, hang on, that's 5, Year Zero, that's 6, isn't it? 6? I don't know, let me just double check. Yeah, that's 6. So album number 7, released by Nine Inch Nails, was completely unexpected. So as I mentioned in my previous episode, I was talking about the Year Zero period. Nine Inch Nails has had a falling out of love with their record label on the grounds that their CDs were $10 more expensive than anybody else's, because the record label thought, the fans will pay the price because they really like Nine Inch Nails, which effectively was their way of saying, we're going to rip off the fans of the band because they've got taste. So, yeah, there you have it. And so when the Nine Inch Nails exercised their option and fulfilled the requirements of their contract, they found themselves for the first time in 20 years, late 2007, mercifully free from the burdens of a record label and able to do things their own way, which nobody really knew what that was going to mean. Everybody thought, well, yeah, Trent made an album in 2005, toured in 2005, toured in 2006, did a live DVD in 2006, toured in 2007, released the album Year Zero in 2007. Guy deserves a break. Well, this was the new, sober Trent, who had a higher work rate. And I think, as if you've got an addictive personality, you're the kind of person that needs to fill the time with something. And since Trent wasn't a father or had a vast family life at that point, he filled his time with making music. And Nine Inch Nails were working on a secret project, or more correctly, as is often the case, just went quiet, didn't tell anybody. Spent 10 weeks in the studio in late 2007 and started working up some potential new material with a wider range of guest musicians than they'd done at any other point in their career. Career is a terrible word to use about an artist. It implies that there's a game plan or some kind of strategy. And often, if you're creating art, unless your art is grossly insincere and cookie cutter, kind of like, actually, let's not name the names, that would get me into trouble. But if you're the kind of person that has a career in music and you just see it as just, well, it's a thing that I do, it's my job, I clock on at 9, I finish at 5, and I make a record, and out comes the results, like some kind of sausage grinder. Nine Inch Nails instead, I think, took the view, although Nine Inch Nails was just basically Trent Reznor at this point, is that he took the view that he was just going to write some more material and see where it comes. So sat there with some musicians that were working with him, including, I think, Atticus Ross, who later appears quite prominently in Nine Inch Nails releases, and a number of other musicians that he'd asked to come in and play with the band for a period of time, with a blank template. And over the course of these 10 weeks, these 50 days, produced a total of 38 songs, which, given that we were looking at 5 years between albums, or a song every 3 months, was a pretty staggering state of affairs. And the first anyone really knew about it was just an announcement that something was coming soon. and then released on the 2nd of March 2008. Oh, that's an anniversary. I should have done this a couple of days ago, but released on the 2nd of March 2008. Ghosts 1 to 4 was issued as a download double album, 36 instrumental 9 Inch Nails songs available completely free from the band's website. It was the first independent release, first release free from the constraints of a marketing push or a release schedule or anything like that. And it was, a band that had complete artistic control and opinion to be able to do whatever they wanted. So this is what they did, 36 instrumental songs. Now, I think the name Ghosts is very, very suitable for it. Unlike many other albums that are released, this is not, Ghosts is sort of a ghost album in so much as it didn't have the usual promotional single, loads of interviews, tour or anything like that. It's just an album that was just stuck out there almost as a sneak release, just to go, here's an album you didn't know existed, and here it is. And it was very, very, very popular indeed. The first 9 songs, Ghosts Part 1, were released as a free download. Ghosts 1 to 4 were released as a paid download, or you could pay $10 for a CD, or you could pay $75 for 2 CDs and a Blu-ray or a DVD and a book. And you could pay $300 for a super mega box set with the CDs and the DVD and a book and 4 LPs and 2 prints and an expanded hardback selection and signed by Trent. They sold 2,500 of those, sold out in less than 24 hours for $300. I don't have one. In fact, even ordering one of these from America was pretty amazing, or more correctly, difficult, because the band said, you can order it direct from 9 Inch Nails. If I'd have known I could have been able to go to Amazon and order it a few weeks later, I would have done exactly that. But I ordered it from the US. I paid US postage from the US. I took the risks with the customs fees and charges. I didn't get caught. Woof! And managed to get a copy of it. There was also a 4 LP vinyl retail version that was released in 2008. One pressing, long overdue a repressing, guys, which didn't make it out through the initial release and was released separately. This Ghosts is, I think, a fascinating 9 Inch Nails album. It's effectively 36 songs in 4 movements, and the songs themselves are kind of ghostly. So they're all instrumentals. If there's any vocals on it, they're all wordless. And it takes the lead from things like the instrumental sides of Low and Heroes, the work of Eno, My Life in the Bush of Ghosts by David Byrne and Brian Eno, parts of the Still album, which was recorded in 2000, which saw 9 Inch Nails operating in an almost acoustic, unplugged environment, and the 2006 Bridge School shows that Trent played, where it was him and a piano. But the biggest influence on Ghosts, and this is one that not many people really talk about, is Aphex Twin's Selected Ambient Works number 2. And the reason I'll say that Selected Ambient Works number 2, or volume 2, is the biggest influence upon this is that much like Ghosts, this is 2 ambient instrumental CDs. Like Ghosts, the songs don't have titles. The songs instead are represented by pictures. So, for example, each one of the pictures that's in the booklet has a number next to it and is kind of arranged as such throughout the CD. So you look at it and go, right, so that's song 1 and this is song 2 and so on and so forth. Now, the song titles on Ambient Works 2, by the way, are things like take their names from one word that generally describes the photograph in the chronological order of the booklet. And so, for example, it is cliffs, radiator, rhubarb, not donkey rhubarb, hanky, grass, mould, curtains, blur, weathered stone, tree, domino, white blur. In fact, there's one called Blue Calx, which I think is has been released under another name elsewhere. But aside from that, most of the songs don't really have a title as such. And like Ghosts, it comes in a very minimal, low package, double CD format. And it's bloody brilliant. Love a bit of Aphex Twin. And Ghosts has, again, 36 songs, but they're just numbered 1 to 36. That's how the titles work. Parts of some of the songs have appeared elsewhere in various mixes and alternate forms, but by and large, you look at a band set list. Let's pick this one up, and it has Ghost 4, for example, and this one might have, let's say, Ghosts 19 as the track that's on the set list. So there it is, 36 tracks in 4 movements. And when you've got this set, I really wasn't expecting this release to come out at all. So for the title of Ghosts also is very evocative of what's in the songs itself. It's almost ghosts of Nine Inch Nails songs. So if you stripped a Nine Inch Nails song of the melody, of the vocals, of the guitar, of the drums, and you just had that ambient scary noise that sat underneath the bottom of the song that made it sound like Nine Inch Nails, you would be looking at effectively the Ghosts multi-tracks, and that is what Ghost is. It's almost like the inverse Ghost versions of Nine Inch Nails songs that never quite work. And these songs also set the template for what was going to become the next stage of Trent's career. Now the instrumental material kind of builds upon some of the more ambient, more relaxed songs that you would have had on the Downward Spiral, such as A Warm Place. The instrumental textures that you would have had in a song like In This Twilight, songs that are on the Fragile, but it really goes all the way out, full out, and is effectively 36 instrumental demos of Nine Inch Nails songs that never were. Originally it was meant to be a 5-song EP. There was no real plan for it to be a double album. Trent and Co kind of sat there, one of them started playing an instrument, another one built in, and within a day generally the song was complete because the instrumentation was all set up. There are also, by the way, on the DVD edition of the album, which I do not have, there are 2 extra songs, Ghosts 37 and Ghosts 38. The DVD presents the multi-tracks, so you can remix the material and recreate it to be whatever it is you want it to be, for example. And 37 and 38 are 2 songs that are only available in multi-track form on the DVD. They are therefore, apart from one split 7-inch single that was released very, very recently, the only official Nine Inch Nails material that's been released that I don't have in some physical format. The booklet and the packaging is very minimal. So the big deluxe booklet comes with a 40-page book, which is also a PDF that comes with the download, and creates a kind of like a selection of ideas around what those songs might be. So it's the whole of the packaging around this period is absolutely fantastic. It feels very much like it's designed to create almost a touchable, holdable work of art. It's not just here's a CD booklet with some photographs of some bored guys standing in the field or something, looking moody, wearing hats, unlike certain other albums that I love dearly. It's a organic, textural, real, grounded kind of artwork that's presented in such a way that feels as if you can reach out and touch it and feel the music. It has a number of very interesting parts that are within it. There are a number of songs that appear in various forms in soundtracks. So Trent Reznor's done the soundtrack for things like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and The Social Network and the Vietnam War and Gone Girl and Soul, and some of the tracks from Ghosts appear on those soundtrack albums. Also, one of the tracks, I think is it Ghosts 34, I believe, is an American #1 single because it was later remixed with vocals added by Little Nas X, whoever the fuck he is, to do a song called Old Town Road, and therefore was a #1. Very cheeky, I would say, really. Number 30, by the way, track 30, Ghosts 30, samples some music that was played during the verdict upon Saddam Hussein following a trial, following the fall of, I think it's Afghanistan or Iraq. And Ghosts number 18 is a song that builds upon drum loops that appear from one of the remixes of The Warning from the Year Zero remixed album, but also it has a drum pattern that's very, very similar to that great Lost Nine Inch Nails classic, Now I Am Nothing, which should be on an album. God damn it, release it, man, release it. There are also some guest musicians which are mentioned here in the booklet. So Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross are the 2 performers. Alan Moulder, well known, does a production. We have Rob Sheridan doing the artwork and design, creating something that felt like Nine Inch Nails and following on the through line that went through Year Zero and With Teeth. And then we had some guest appearances by Alessandro Cortini from the Nine Inch Nails live band, Adrian Bellew, who was formerly of the David Bowie parish, who plays on 3, 10, 11, 16, 21, 25, 27, 30, 31, 32 and 35. Alessandro Cortini plays on 11, 17, 19, 28, 29 and I think 33. And then drums on one track by Brian Vigilone, whoever he is. Sorry, Brian, I don't know who you are. Ghosts was a unexpected release and a huge commercial success. It sold the 2,500 super deluxe editions within 24 hours. It sold 781,917 downloads or transactions in the first 6 weeks and generated a total of 1.6 million for Nine Inch Nails Limited, which means that obviously a number of those were the free downloads, but at least, I would have thought 50, 60, 70,000 were the commercial release. So very, very interesting indeed. Is this a good album by the Nine Inch Nails? Honestly, probably one of my least favourites. It's the one that I listen to the least. But that's because it's all instrumental material, and I'm a sucker for a good melody. I'm a sucker for a well laid out instrumental track and a vocal. But none of that is on here, which is a shame, but it's an absolutely essential part of understanding the Nine Inch Nails story. And of course, Ghosts is darkly, comically ambient, vaguely threatening, and is the album that leads into things such as Trent soundtracks for The Social Network and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, all of which will turn up in, no doubt, a future Notcast about Nine Inch Nails. The second release that came out, and this was perhaps really, really, really unexpected, was announced on May the 5th, 2008. So 1 month after the physical release of Ghosts, and Nine Inch Nails had announced a summer American tour that then also went to South America, North America, called Lights in the Sky. Took the title Lights in the Sky from the feeling of the presence that appeared in Year Zero. So the Year Zero touring period in 2007 didn't really touch upon North America. So Year Zero wasn't toured in America, and it wasn't toured in South America. So 2008's Lights in the Sky felt like it was a continuation of the Year Zero tour. But surprise, new Nine Inch Nails album came out, The Slip, which was announced on May the 5th, 2008, and available for download. It had 2 physical releases. Here's the CD and DVD version, which in America was limited to 250,000, and in the rest of the world was quietly unlimited. This, by the way, is number 71,352 of 250,000. If you can see that, your eyesight's better than mine. And there was also a double LP edition of it that was released on August the 4th. The physical version was released on July the 22nd, and the album was finished on, I think, May the 4th, 2008 at 9:30 p.m. and released at midnight, 2.5 hours later. Unlike previous Nine Inch Nails albums that I think had been sweated and poured over and thought about a gazillion times, The Slip was something that was done very, very quickly. Again, done in 3 weeks. It was an EP that became an album, much like Ghosts, and somehow everything coalesced into what is, I regard, one of my favourite Nine Inch Nails albums. It had generated 1.4 million downloads because it was released completely free by June the 26th, 2008. And which, on top of the 781,000 downloads which Ghosts had, indicated that very clearly there are people there that are interested in the band. Both this and Ghosts effectively worked as free promotion for the band's live shows, which was where the revenue was going. And I didn't buy the vinyl because I didn't buy vinyl in those days. Obviously I regret it now because it cost about £200 to get one of these original vinyl pressings. I'll just buy them when if they eventually ever get a repressing from the band themselves. But The Slip is one of my favourite Nine Inch Nails albums. At the time it came out, 2008, I was 18 years past Pretty Hate Machine. My life had changed completely. I'd known and loved Nine Inch Nails for half of my life. The version of me that first heard Nine Inch Nails as a 16-year-old kid in suburban Birmingham, where the local bands to look forward to were Judas Priest and Black Sabbath and fucking UB40, you know. And I was a kid that listened to those bands and went, those don't talk to me about my life. I don't have a lemon that I can squeeze until the juice runs down anybody's legs, and I certainly can't help falling in love with cod reggae cover versions of Bob Dylan tracks for movie soundtracks. So it's fair to say those songs said nothing to me about my life, but Nine Inch Nails did. And I think both Trent's life and my life, and the life of a lot of fans, had changed dramatically in the time since Nine Inch Nails had first arrived. I've got the theory about bands where if a band exists for about 20 years, there's almost a complete rotation of the fan base. You know, if you got into Nine Inch Nails when you were 16, let's say 1990, by the time you got to 2009, you were 35, and that was the age I was. And at 35, you've got a much better idea of who you are and where you sit in the world and the direction that you're traveling in the world. With luck, you have a good, stable, strong adult relationship, or you've had experience of those. You've got a good position in terms of your employment and career, normally. You've got some direction. You roughly have got an idea about, you know, what's going on in your life. Whereas obviously at the age of 16, you don't know, well, who am I going to love? Who am I going to live with? Where am I going to work? How am I going to make money? Am I going to be able to live on my own? By the time you get to 35, normally you're at a point where you're able to go, I've got a really good hang upon what's going to be happening in my life. It doesn't always work, as we know. Life sometimes throws curveballs at us, especially as we get older. But at this point, you know, the things which Nine Inch Nails was thinking about on the first album were not things that I was feeling quite so sharply at the age of 35. Instead, what The Slip does do is it's an album that I think for me lyrically really dials into and extrapolates some of the themes that we have in Year Zero. So some of the themes around authority and submission, power, control, and around identity that are linked to those. Also, the title, by the way, of The Slip is very, very good. It works on a number of areas. So because it was the last album that was recorded and released during the band's lifespan, The Slip has two meanings. The first one is, I've given somebody the slip. I've made an escape. I've vanished out of existence and I can't be found. The second one is when you change employment, when your job comes to an end, you're given the slip. And the slip is the piece of paper that has your tax details on. You then have to declare to the tax people so that you don't pay too much or too little tax. So the slip works both ways. It's a tool for escape, and it's a bureaucratic and administrative way of achieving an exit, giving somebody the slip. It's a really, really good title. It's completely appropriate to what this album is about, because the themes of this album around power and control are also linked to the themes that come up to the end of the album, which is around effectively kind of escaping from the shadow and the weight of the circumstances that surround you. So before we get into that, which is important, I should also point out that the cover for the album is based upon a 1982 poster for an exhibition in Paris about urban town planning. It is very evocative. I wish I had it up on my screen so I could show it to you. In fact, I could probably do that now. Hang on, I'm going to put you on pause. Back in a second. God bless the pause button, eh? So this is the poster, which became the inspiration for the album cover, and as you can see, very, very closely resemblant to it. You can make out the detail there. There's a hand upon a shoulder that's pulling or pushing a person and stopping them from doing something, and it's rendered in quite a classical style that's outside of the contemporary art of the time. Now the sleeve art that we've got on there again is a hand that's holding somebody back, but it could also be seen as to be a hand that's pushing somebody towards something, which reinforces the central themes and tenets of the album, which are around power and control. So for each song on the album, there is an individual graphic, in much the same way that Ghosts has a PDF booklet which has 40 photographs that are in it, each one of which represents a particular song. And of course, Ambient Works number 2 here has 40 images inside the booklet, each of which is associated with a particular song. The Slip has 10 graphics or 10 images which are associated with each of the songs that are represented on the panels that sit inside the booklet and on the cover art of the vinyl release. And each of those logos that work for each song have a graphical representation of the meaning and themes that sit inside the song, as well as the tell a story around what that is. So this is where I go down to Sude's Corner, and I go into the packaging of the album. The packaging, by the way, is absolutely glorious. So you've got a 2-disc set here. You've got the audio of the studio album, which is here. You've got a fold out here which has the DVD. The DVD contains Nine Inch Nails rehearsal footage of the live configuration of the band performing several songs live, including, let's think, what the song? I don't even remember what the songs are that are on it, but 5 live tracks recorded in the rehearsal studio and filmed by the band's graphic designer Rob Sheridan. The artwork also contains 3 stickers, 4x4. This one here for 9.99. This one here for The Four of Us Are Dying, and this one here, which I think is for Letting You, but I could be wrong. And this, by the way, also copies the Artist Resistance logo that comes from the Year Zero record. We also had in the initial editions of it a t-shirt design here, which was included in there, which effectively was for the Lights in the Sky Tour 2008, kind of saying, oh, you can buy this t-shirt. So we start off with the colour art here, and if that doesn't look familiar, I don't know what does. It's very, very similar to the Nine Inch Nails logo in a very, very stylised fashion. As you can see, it kind of represents Nine Inch Nails, but in the form of a more kind of standard, kind of modernist approach, where you can look at it and go, right, so that's the Nine Inch Nails logo there, a classic N, and then the reversed N that sits inside there. We then go to this, which is 999. And 999,999 is the first track on the album. It's an instrumental. It's only about a minute. It's this dull, kind of threatening, ominous drone, kind of almost a continuation from Ghost 36. And what this kind of does is, if you listen to the end of Ghost and then you put this on straight away, it kind of works as a kind of on-ramp build-up to the next track, the first track on the album, or the first official track on the album, which is 1 million. And 1 million, firstly, this graphical design here, it can be you can look at it and kind of go, right, so it's actually just a graphical design of 1 million in terms of numbers, but also it's very stylized, it's very square, it's very blocky, it follows the representation that we've got. And this is one of the, the artworks that you've got for each one of the songs, but also, depending on how you look at it, it can also be seen to be a man falling from a building. And the lyrics to 1 million are reminiscent of and draw parallels with both Hurt, which says I feel like I could start again, a million miles away, and All the Love in the World as well, which also mentions a million miles away. This lyric is very much around, going, I don't belong where I am. I'm trying to find my place in this world, and I don't know who I am or what I'm going to be. And then the chorus is, I jump from every rooftop so high, so far to fall. I feel a million miles away. I don't feel anything at all. I wake up on the floor, start it up again like it matters anymore. I don't know if it does. Is this really all that there ever was? Put the gun in my mouth, close your eyes, blow my fucking brains out. Pretty patterns on the floor, that's enough for you, but I still need more. Now that is a pretty brutal lyric. It reflects upon and draws parallels with the lyrics that are inside the title track to The Downward Spiral, the lyric of which is in the book, where he goes about, I put the gun in my mouth and everything went away, from the title track, which kind of repeats itself here in a million, but also the idea of kind of falling to the floor there from a tall building and not knowing who you are. And of course there's also the track Big Man with a Gun on the Downward Spiral as well. So the next track we've got is Letting You, and there is the L there of letting, and then you can see that as kind of a U, but also it's the Artist Resistance logo which appears inside the Year Zero album. And Letting You, I think, is it's a great song actually. I've never seen them play it live, but it's around an abuse of power. It's around control. It's around the idea of, we are letting you get away with it. We are letting you get away with it, as if to say, when you've got a concept around your own worth. And I heard a brilliant thing the other day around, you have to realise that the concept of your own worth is what you are worth to you, not what you are worth to other people. And then if you ask for nothing, that's exactly what you'll get. Faith No More line there from, I think, Why Do You Bother? but also it's that idea of worth is self-defined by what you are prepared to put up with. And if you are letting somebody get away with it, you are lowering your own worth. Or as I said to somebody when I was going through a separation is, if I fall for anything, I'll stand for nothing. Which is a lyric that I've used many times in my songs, and of course you've never heard it because I've never published any of my songs online. But we've got the lyric here about letting you get away with it. So the lyrical conceits of the album around control and power and identity and where you are put within that world and what you put up with and what you're prepared to fight. So we have track 4 is Discipline, the only single released from the album, released in an early mix. I, by the way, have created a multi-track remix of the entire of the album, which I'll put on my Mixcloud, and I will put in the down there in the comment section. But Discipline is a great track live. I wish they'd play it live more often. It sounds to me like someone's taken an instrumental from a John Carpenter horror movie and turned it into a Nine Inch Nails track. Yeah, Discipline as a concept works both ways. One about self-discipline, about self-control, about self-actualization, about self-realization, and the other one, discipline, is around, for example, if you're being disciplined by somebody, it's effectively trying to modify, control and conform your behavior. So the lyric to Discipline is very clearly around these coordinating themes of power and control and all the stuff which is sung about in Head Like a Hole as well. By the way, you'll see the D here. This image, again, it has a red line that runs through it. The red line is significant. So if you look at the artwork there, 999 or 666 has a red line that runs from top to bottom. This one here has a red line that runs through some of the zeros there. Letting You has a red line that starts in the middle of the L and goes the way down. The red line starts in the middle of Discipline, and the red line acts as a thematic through line through the art of the rest of the record. The red line is effectively the line beyond which that individual represents. That's their line. That's the line that they will not cross, and that's its journey through a series of obstacles to kind of actualize itself. So Discipline, absolutely great track. Then we have Echoplex. Echoplex has a lyric about being inside 4 enclosed walls. So the lyric is, my voice just echoes off these walls, I don't need anything at all. Now you can look at this image here, you can see, right, that's actually the individual there, that's the narrator, his voice echoing off the walls which are around him, and then the red line kind of follows a kind of a line through there, but also I don't think it's entirely a coincidence that there is a Pill track called 4 Enclosed Walls. I think it's on the Flower of Romance album. And it's drawing a kind of like in comparison to some of the themes that we've got inside there. It's a sense of being enclosed, a sense of being confined, a sense of, because the rhythm track is very, very rigid. There's very little flair that's in that. And then there's that look about, it feels like I am inside these walls and I could just slowly fade away and you will never ever get to me in here. We have track 5, Head Down, and you could look at that again and you could kind of look at that as a mouth with a gun inside it, which ties in with the lyric that we've got in Big Man with a Gun, Downward Spiral, 1 million miles away, that type of stuff. The idea of there's the options that you've got are narrowing and narrowing and narrowing until there's actually very little to choose from in there. I think Head Down is a song about submission to authority. When God himself is reaching through and he's going to push you down, like the hand and the presence that's on the cover of Year Zero, the hand that pushes you down from God and religion and control that appears in The Wretched also appears in this song. It's a way of creating control and power over someone, and I'd rather die than give you control. But it's about submission to authority, and there's like an element in this where the lyrics are in effectively 2 separate typefaces. So we've got the verses here which are in small, and then there's the chorus which is in a large font. Now this is almost a duet between 2 sides when you look at the lyrics. So the lyric around You, what you're looking at, head down, too late for that. What you want, what you get, know your place, don't you ever forget. And then the response, also sung by Trent, but this is also in large typeface, which is also effectively the oppressed talking back to the oppressor. So the small font is the oppressor, it's trying to crush, and the large font is the oppressed, trying to reclaim their space back. And they're going, this is not my face, this is not my life, and there is not a single thing here that I can recognize. This is all a dream, and none of you are real, and I will give anything, and I will give anything. There's that point where I'm always reminded of the section that's in the Making of Apocalypse Now documentary, Hearts of Darkness, absolutely essential making of, where they kind of go, the crew, somebody asks one of the people on the crew, where are you today? He goes, I'm not here today, I'm on a beach and I'm smoking weeds and I'm getting stoned in Malibu. And that idea of, also kind of carried through from songs like How to Disappear Completely by Radiohead, is the idea is, I'm not here, this isn't really happening, this is not my face, this is not my life, there is not a single thing here I recognise, this is not my choice, this is something that's been imposed upon me, and I am fighting back against it. And the voice of authority is going, head down, you, what you looking at, get down, know your place. Which of course is all the way through the lyric. I think I think that's a really good Nine Inch Nails album. It's one of my favourites. Now we're on to track 7, which I think is Lights in the Sky. This is one of the 3 images in the booklet that doesn't have the red line in it, because effectively what you've got at the end of, because the red line stops there, it doesn't go any further in the booklet to head down. We then kind of look up. So lights in the sky, this could symbol one of 3 things, this abstract circle. It could be a whirlpool or a black hole, something that's sucking you in. It could be a light in the sky, or I prefer to think of it as a UFO, a halo, a representation of a power that is both unknown and not only unknowable, but unnegotiable. You can only ride that wave, you can't stop it. And that's what this is here in Lights in the Sky, in my opinion. There's the lyric about, watching you drown, I'll follow you down, and I'm here right beside you. The lights in the sky have finally arrived. I am staying here right beside you in time. Now this lyric here around the lights in the sky, especially in computer games, if you get shot and it's a first person shooter, often everything gets very white and you see lights, and well, depending on who you are, if you're Steve Jobs, your last words are, oh wow. If you're Richard Belzer, your last words are, fuck you, motherfucker. I'm not going out on my knees. So there's kind of that representation of some power that is beyond human comprehension in Lights in the Sky, which also ties in with the presence from the year 0 and the power and control authority that sits alongside that. We have track 8, which is Corona Radiata. I don't quite, it's an instrumental, by the way, so it kind of, the second half of the album kind of dissipates into a nothingness. It kind of evaporates almost like steam, and reminds me very much of Ghosts, but a more song-based, more focused, more concise element of some of the songs that are on Ghosts. And Corona Radiata, by the way, the phrase which is track 8, is kind of the centre of a storm. We have track 9, The Four of Us Are Dying, another instrumental. And the imagery here is not unintentional. So these 3 songs here are mostly instrumental. This one here, these 4 images could be 4 heads, they could be 4 coffins, they could be 4 doors or 4 steps, depending on how you want to look at them. It's ambiguous, the imagery, it's clever, it's designed to invoke ideas and feelings, but it's not unintentional. I think this is all designed from a visual perspective, and I think Rob Sheridan deserves a lot of respect and recognition for the work that he's done on here. The last song on the album is called Demon Seed, and it's a very clever song, because at this point the red line which travels through the rest of it has kind of lost control and become a blurry squiggle all over the entire of the booklet. You've got a repetition of some of the imagery that went around there, but you've got a white circle. It's indicating a light in the sky, a conclusion to the narrative story which you have in the rest of the LP. And the demon seed is almost regarded as an avatar of destruction. You can kind of look at some of the imagery that you've got around that, the repetition of the 666, the 999 that is in the first song of the album, closes on here as well, because we have 6 verses although I think verse 3 isn't sung, and the last line of verse 6 isn't sung. Instead, you get verse 4 repeated 3 times. So effectively you get 8 verses, but you also get a count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 just before the last of the verses. And the album kind of dissipates out with the lyric about a demon seed kind of going, all these events, these things that have happened to me and imposed upon me that are outside of my control have created a new version of me. They've planted a demon seed very similar to the film Saturn 3 from the 80s, which I both love and loathe because it's fucking weird. And things like Rosemary's Baby, for example, the idea of a series of events creating something new. There is the you that existed before, there is the event, whatever the event is, stay indoors, and then there is the, you know, the outside of that, the second part of that, the new version of you that has been through those experiences. And Demon Seed is kind of saying there is a seed inside of me that makes me, and I will use my voice and I will use my fist to destroy everything I can. Is now I know what this is about and I know exactly what I am. You know, it's pretty unambiguous there as to what the album is about. It's almost a sound of rebirth. It's a sound of whatever comes next. I'd hesitate to say that it was all planned that way, but this was, for a long period of time, Nine Inch Nails' final studio album. There was a sense that the Nine Inch Nails story, narrative, and lyrical concepts had reached a conclusion at the end of the slip, which is, of course, also mentioned inside the title of the album. It's a bloody brilliant record. I love the slip. You should listen to it, buy it, love it, whatever it is that you do, because I think it's fucking amazing. It's one of my favourite Nine Inch Nails albums. And then we had the physical release of the album, which followed this up, which came out in July 2008. Or as I said, the LP version was released a couple of weeks later in August. But the DVD version, or more correctly the CD version of the album, did contain a DVD with 5 rehearsal songs recorded by the live configuration of the band, including at that point Alessandro Cortini, Josh Freese, drummer to the Stars, last seen with the Foo Fighters, Robin Fink, also once of the Nine Inch Nails, and I think Justin Johansson, I think was his name, who I saw playing with Beck to start off with, and then later at Nine Inch Nails on the 2009 tour. So all in all, I rate the slip. I think it's a fantastic record, and I rate it very, very highly. So obviously no singles at this point. Singles were not really a thing, but there were 2 extra releases which came out. So the band went on the Lights in the Sky tour, which started in North America, went back to South America, then went to North America again. As is frequently the case, when bands play South America, they broadcast the shows on TV. 1, to get a bit of extra money, 2, to make sure that the fans that can't get to the show can at least watch it on television. So that resulted in this bootleg DVD called Closer, now available from Amazon for about £3, which was recorded and around, I don't know, Buenos Aires around about the 15th of October 2008. Misses the first 2 songs thanks to breaks in transmission, but otherwise is a complete recording and features 26 songs from the tour in television and professional quality. Really, really good, by the way. If you can't get a Nine Inch Nails live DVD, do have a look in your Amazon and see if you can find this. There was also a fascinating fan project, which was, the original plan was to film the 2008 shows using James Cameron's technology, which he'd also developed for Avatar, and present a 3D concert movie that would go into the cinemas. They had everything all lined up, but they needed to get permission from the former record label, asking them for some funding or asking them for permission, neither of which were forthcoming in a timely fashion. So Nine Inch Nails instead took the amateur footage, which they had got, the 3 mixing desk recordings that they recorded at the end of the tour in December 2008, plus some extra footage, and an enterprising set of Nine Inch Nails fans created this, another version of The Truth, the Gift, effectively a free to distribute, almost officially sanctioned Blu-ray and DVD of Nine Inch Nails live in 2008, capturing the last 3 shows by that particular lineup. I don't know if you can still get this. I know the shows are up on YouTube. They're absolutely brilliant and phenomenal. I really wish they got an official release. It's just such a shame that they didn't get a wider release. But another version of the truth here. There was a number of editions. There was a multi-disc set which featured each one of the shows plus a whole bunch of extras, and then there's this version which has just one disc. Well, actually I've got the Blu-ray and the DVD in my copy, but features just one show and a compilation of the 3 shows, and it's actually brilliant. I absolutely love it, as well as some explanatory text inside a digipack. I think you could have got these for like $3-4 many years ago. They're probably worth a lot more money now. I don't quite know. Now, I saw Nine Inch Nails on this tour. This was the last time that I saw Nine Inch Nails. They reconfigured the lineup ever further. Josh Freese left the band to go off and play drums with somebody who presumably did pay him more money. I know how much money he was getting paid. It was quite a lot of money. And a new drummer, Ilian Rubin, who I think he was in Lost Prophets for a period of time. He was in maybe Icarus Line as well, I'm not quite sure, joined the band. And Ilian is the band's live drummer to this day. Also, I think the youngest guy who's ever been inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Even younger, I think, than Josh Klinghoffer of the Red Hot Chili Peppers at the time. And the band played, well, they made an announcement as they were in the middle of their Australian tour. They called it Wave Goodbye, said this is the end of the Nine Inch Nails touring cycle. They had some American shows lined up. They had some European shows, including shows in Manchester and London, supported by the original lineup of Jane's Addiction with Eric Avery back on bass. I saw that show. It's the only time I saw the Dave Navarro and Eric Avery lineup of Jane's Addiction. It was a great show, but I was on my drinking days, so we got in about 5 minutes before the band came on, and they opened with 3 days. And it was very strange indeed. And then Nine Inch Nails played, and I remember when I was watching Nine Inch Nails at the O2 Arena, firstly, how the hell did this band that I saw at Goldwyn's 15 years ago or 18 years ago, playing to 600 people, playing to 25,000 people in an arena? I mean, that didn't make sense to me. I was like, no, that's not Nine Inch Nails. And played a great show, but it was very heavy on material from Downward Spiral. Now, as you know from me and who I am, I'm very interested in bands and artists that do things now. I'm not interested in nostalgia. Obviously, you can't know where you are without knowing where you've come from, but at the same point, if all you're ever doing is looking back, you're going to get lost. And I want music that speaks to me now about what's happening now, that gives me, ways of seeing the world I'm living in now, not reminding me of how good it was back then. The question you should be asked is, how am I going to make sense of today? Not, do you remember what it was like back then? I remember what it was like. It was often absolutely rubbish, and I have no nostalgia for a time that never existed, to quote Jello Biafra. I'm always interested in artists creating new material. I may not necessarily like it, but I'm always interested in it. I always want to have new songs, because I'd rather have the option of new songs and not like them than not have the option of new songs at all. And the set list that the band had at this point, obviously they were doing some career retrospectives. They'd said, right, we're not going to be playing again. This was the last time that Nine Inch Nails were going to play London, ever. Yeah, okay, that didn't quite work out like that. But it was going to be the last time that Nine Inch Nails played London, and they played next to no songs off their most recent album. So I've missed the Year Zero touring cycle because I've been on holiday in Oklahoma and traveling through America during that time. So when I did get to see them in 2009, I felt like I'd missed a part of the story. And I was kind of like missed the 5th film out of a 6-film series. Kind of going, I'm not quite sure what's going on. Especially if you've missed The Last Jedi and you were watching Rise of Skywalker, you'd be sat there going, what the heck's happening? I don't understand any of this. Then again, I'd seen Last Jedi. I don't understand what the heck's happening or any of what's happening in Rise of Skywalker either, so it doesn't really matter. But when I saw Nine Inch Nails at the O2 Arena, the last time that I saw them, 15th of July, 2009, the thing that was very clear in my mind is 2 things. First one is, I am never going to see Nine Inch Nails again, because I felt that I moved away from the music that Nine Inch Nails were doing. Now, I've come back to it over time, but sometimes your life goes in one direction, the band goes in a different direction, and sometimes you never come back to them. And, whilst I was still invested, still love Nine Inch Nails, what I was thinking was, I'm watching a band that are really, really angry about stuff that happened 15 years ago. I wasn't angry about stuff that had happened 15 years before that show. I'd been through therapy. I'd reconciled to some of the things that were happening in there. And I, like every other human being on the planet, has been traumatized by past events. There is not one human being that's not traumatized by something that's happened to them. The fact that mankind as a species has got as far as it has and achieved as much as it has, given all the trauma that's been thrown at it over the years, we should be really, really proud of who we are as a species. Well, most of us, maybe not the people that are in government, but the O2 show, I just felt like I'd moved away from, not grown out of, but grown away from the band, and that the band were looking backwards and were revisiting a lot of material from the Downward Spiral, which was not where I was, and I didn't think it was particularly fair to Nine Inch Nails for them to be a touring museum to how good they once were. So when I was watching that was one thought was going through my head. The other thought that was going through my head is they had an awful lot of super aggressive, unnecessary strobe lighting. And I remember I had to turn away from the stage and had to cover my eyes with my hands because I was like, I feel like I could have an epileptic fit. And I didn't, but I was like, I can't risk seeing the band again if that's what's going to happen, because it's just super aggressive strobe lighting adds nothing to a show. It just means that people that do have epilepsy, have epileptic fits, or people that are borderline feel really bloody uncomfortable for no real reason. And this is why I prefer very different lighting rigs for bands. So that was the last time I saw Nine Inch Nails. I think the last song that they performed, was Hurt, I think. Might have been Head Like a Hole. And at the end of that show, and I was like, I'm in my mid-30s, and that is the ending of that moment. Nine Inch Nails had said they were going to split up, and that was going to be it. They played some more shows. The last show was, I think, at the Wiltern, about 6 weeks later, and that was the end of Nine Inch Nails. And the strange thing is, for me, sometimes when a band says it's splitting up, you're not going to come back to them. You remember when you were much, much younger, and you maybe went out with somebody when you were 16 or 17, and they dump you, you get back together, they dump you, you get back together. I'm 35. If someone says they're dumping me, that's it, I'm done. I'm like, right, fine, I'm off to my next adventure. See you later, suckers. And that's how I felt when Nine Inch Nails said they were going to be splitting up. I'm like, right, that's it. I'm, coming back 4 years later with another album going, hey guys, I'm still here. It's like, no, you're not. You've disappeared off for 4 years until you've run out of money in your bank account. I'm not playing that game. We said goodbye. I said all my goodbyes. There were people that were crying at the last Nine Inch Nails show. I wasn't there. I've seen loads of bands' last gigs. I've shed lots of tears for bands that have split up. And of all the bands whose last gigs I've been at that have said it's going to be their last gig, they've always come back 10 years later where I'm going, hey guys, remember me? I want to pay for a new kitchen. So as far as I'm concerned, with Nine Inch Nails at least, I was like, right, I'm done, guys. That's it. We're through. Ta-ra. See ya. Have a lovely time without me. Unsurprisingly, Nine Inch Nails reformed a few years later. They played some more shows, which of course is for the next Notcast when I get to that point. But in the meantime, that wraps up me talking about Nine Inch Nails and Ghosts Year Zero. I thought this period was really, really good. There was obviously we had Ghosts, we had the Slip, we had the live unofficial DVD, and the live unofficial official Blu-ray as well. This was a really good period to be a fan of the band. There was lots and lots of material that was coming out. They were very, very busy. They did, let's think, 3 tours, 2 studio albums, and some quite good potential live releases as well. So obviously there we are. So if you're made it this far, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you haven't noticed I'm feeling pretty poorly at the moment. I'm feeling pretty rotten, to be honest. I'm going to go and crawl into my bed and have a big fat nap after this, and hopefully I'll feel better in the morning. In the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other. Stay beautiful, and wave goodbye. So see you later. Okay. Wave, wave, wave goodbye. Which was pretty apposite, because the first song I saw Nine Inch Nails ever play live, Now I Am Nothing, the song whose drum pattern was included on, I think, Ghosts 18. It was also the first song I saw the last time I saw Nine Inch Nails play live, which was also the last time Nine Inch Nails played it live until this year, I think. So Now I Am Nothing. One of the greatest Nine Inch Nails songs I've ever heard. Right, I'm going to wrap up. Wave goodbye. Thank you very much. See you all later. Stay beautiful. Ta-ra. Bye.